Hi and welcome. My name is Michael Szabo of BigMikeDesign.com and welcome to another CG Tuts Plus tutorial. I'm happy to be doing another one. This one is a Cinema 4D and After Effects tutorial where we will be recreating the popular baseball outfield wall titles that you see advertising baseball games on TV this year. And once we build this scene, these titles, we'll be able to swap them out with any title we want, and we've got this cool 3D baseball outfield environment, and it's a cool effect that you've seen on TV undoubtedly. So let's get started. Alright, so here we are in Cinema 4D, and I've provided this project file just to kind of streamline this tutorial. I've got all the Photoshop files loaded in it already so we can follow along and not have to waste time adding them in and doing all this tedious stuff. Let's get to the modeling. Alright, let's start by making our wall, and we're going to start with a primitive cube, okay? And in the X size, let's do 50, in the Y do 60, and in the Z do 5, okay? And check fillet on and drop it down to 1, alright? And we're going to increase the amount of segments in our X, and we're going to do that, make it 20. And in the Y, let's do 24. Let's rotate around, see what we got here. Looking good. Alright, so now let's take this cube, let's call it wall panel, and let's make it an editable object. So hit the C key, or you can click right here. Now it's a polygon object. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the rectangular selection tool, and we're going to highlight this top row of little polygons. Oh, click on the polygon tool first. Alright, so rectangular selection tool, polygon tool, highlight the top row of the geometry here. And then we're going to do selection, set selection down here. And name this yellow stripe. This is how we're going to add the materials to our wall here. Alright, and then let's duplicate our panel here and call this corner. Wall panel corner. And delete that selection. We're going to replace it with, actually just hit select polygons, okay, and it's got them selected, and hold the shift key and just add this side of your rectangle, these polygons, just this outer row here, okay, and now that's the corner selection. Alright, now let's add our materials to it. Let's add the wall material I have to each one. Wall panel. Okay, so we've got this green, it's got this grunge texture loaded on, so it looks like the wall is a little dirty from, baseball games being played on it. And now let's add our yellow stripe material to the top here, and go to your texture tag and do the selection menu item here, and pull your triangle on each. Triangle on. Alright, and then let's hide the original panel, and let's check out the corner one. Oop, I guess I didn't do the selection. We'll just hit set selection here. We've got those polygons selected. There you go. Now the selection is set. Didn't actually hit it yet. So now we've got these stripes that go along the edge of our wall. That's what it looks like, on a baseball field. Alright, and we're going to need a corner one. This is where the foul line goes. And so we need an edge there, and then the rest is the stripe along the top. Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to create our wall with Mograph. So get a cloner object and drop these in as your clones. Alright, both of them. And name your cloner wall. Now zoom out here, and we don't want them going up, we want them going over. So in the Y position, offset, drop that to 0, and since the panels were 50 wide, make the X dimension 50, and you'll see we have this sort of wall going on now. They're alternating each side. Now, what we're going to do is we need to make this wall pretty big, so we need to bump up the clones to 20. Alright, and you see what that does for us. Now, what it's doing is it's simply alternating each wall panel, wall corner, wall panel, wall corner. Each one it's going every other one. And the different ways you can arrange the clones. It's on iterate right now, but if you do random, then you're going to get a random assortment of the clones, and that's not what we want either. What we have to do, and it's a little tedious, but it's got to happen, is you have to make 20 different clones to make sure you get these corner stripes in the right position. So we're going to do wall panel, wall panel. So we'll have 3 wall panels and then the corner, okay? And then we'll do, copy those, we'll do 3 more. We'll do, since we have 20 panels, and I want on the, each, in foul territory there should be 3 regular wall panels, and then the foul pole, and then all regular panels, and then another stripe for the other foul pole. So let's zoom out and see what we got here. Basically just keep the corner one, it's going in order, so just keep the corner one in the same spot that we want it, and keep adding the regular ones in there until we get it in the right spot. So we've got the corner on the way at the end, so let's delete one and it slides over. Delete one and it slides over. Now it's in the right spot. We got 3 panels each side. It's symmetrical. Do a quick render. You see what I got here? Alright, so the other way to go about doing this is another little detail that we need is you can see it's applied the texture to each panel, and it's applied it exactly the same to each panel, and that's not what we want, because it looks like every panel is exactly as dirty as the next. So you have to go into your materials and just slightly offset each material in various dimensions. Change it to 15, negative 15, and then do this one as 22. Do this one as, leave the corner ones because those are important. They need to be in the right spot. But then do this one as 6, and then 10 in the Y. And then this one, you know, you just have to go in and do all of these different ones, and you'll see if we do a render now, each panel is having a slightly different little variation to it. And you can get even, you know, bigger with it. Like change this one to 50, and change this one to, you know, 70. Change this one to, you know, 40 in the Y, and you'll get much different patterns across your wall. And it'll look better because you'll have that variation. And if you want to get really ambitious, you can make alternate grunge maps to apply to each different. You can have different wall materials that you can just apply to. That might look better. I'm going to clean this up separate from the tutorial so it looks right, but I don't want to waste time by offsetting that. But you get the idea. You have to go in and offset each material on each clone so that it all looks a little bit different. Okay? And if you probably get the best results by changing the texture map, the projection, to flat instead of UVW. I should have disclosed that. Change it, except for on the corner. Change it on all of them to flat. I meant to tell you that. That way you can offset it and it won't. It's projecting the entire material in just a flat map, and you'll get better results with the laying the grunge map over. Next, we're going to model our. Oh, we have to do this wall edge. Since we've got this grunge going on, this wall edge to me is just too perfectly straight. And if you know, a baseball wall might be a little lopsided in certain spots, so it's understandable that we need to offset the height of this just a little bit, just to add a little bit more realism to it. So we're going to take a random effector and apply it to our cloner, okay? And not going to do the position as it defaults to. So uncheck position, do scale in the Y, and do it like 0.01, just really slight. And you'll see what it did. It just kind of offset the height just oh so slightly. Like if you turn it on and off, like you'll see that it's just doing it so slightly. Now the way that we need to do it, and I guess we should have done this first, I apologize, is we need to have deselect your polygons. Well, no, we just do an object axis, and we're going to need to do all of these. We can just highlight them all, and offset it 30 to the bottom of our wall, so that just the height in the Y is going up and it's keeping the base even. So it's just offset on top and not on bottom. So that looks better now to me. Just if you zoom out and then you see just what the random effector is doing, just slightly making it a little uneven, and it looks a little more real to me that way. Alright, now we're going to add a stripe along the bottom that is just kind of where the wall is put in place. It's just a detail on a baseball field. It goes along between the warning track and the wall. So we're going to call it bottom piece, and we're going to make it. This is 1,000 units long because we have 20 panels and they're 50 wide each. And then just make it real short, like 4, and then not real deep at like 2. Alright, and just slide it into place so that it's even with both edges. Is that even? No, it's not quite. It needs to be 480. Nope, 475. There we go. So now that's even with each edge. Alright, and I have a bottom piece material to apply to that. Just go right along the bottom there. Good, good. And let's go to the left camera view so we can kind of line this up completely in the right spot here. And just needs to move back real slightly, just so that it's up against the back there, and then move it down so we can see the whole thing. Whoops, wrong direction. Yeah, so that'll cast a nice shadow underneath it with our wall once we light this scene. So just a stripe along the bottom, and we're going to need to extend our yellow line to this wall as well. And you could do you subdivide it and do the set selection texture tag, but we can just cheat real quick and do a cube object, really small cube, since make it the same height as before, a 4, and then 1 in the Z, and then how wide is our stripe? Let's just make it 4 and see how close we are. Basically, we're just going to cheat and make this, overlap. Just cut the corner here. It's no big deal. Don't have to tell anybody. And we're going to apply this yellow stripe texture to it. And you'll see it's a little too wide. We can make it just like 3.5, and we'll be okay. And I think it just needs to be shifted slightly, 127.5 or 126.5. And now we've got this slight little stripe that goes along the base of the wall now, and let's push it all the way back so it's just on top, like 2.1, or sorry, 1.9, just so it's eclipsing it just enough. Wait, we'll get this. Hold on. Going the wrong way. Okay. Start back at 1. How deep do we need to make this? So it's gone at 2, so make it like 1.8, 1.5, I don't know. 1.5 it is. There's the magic number. So just so it peeks out of the base real slightly, and it looks like it's painted on. You can't really tell at all. And then we're going to call this just bottom yellow stripe, and slide it over to the other side. Snap this into place. Needs to be just one more. There we go. Whatever numbers, get the job done. 827 in my case. If you're doing exactly how I am, it will be 827. So you see these coordinates, and that's what you need to do. So our wall is pretty wide now, and let's go ahead and add the foul poles. And what we're going to use is a cylinder object, and it's going to start over here, and let's keep the height at 200 and make it just a radius of 2. and let's slide it over to where our foul pole stripe is. Alright, needs to scoot over just oh so slightly so that it's even. There we go, and it's intersecting with our wall, so let's move it back just a few so that it's behind there. You don't need to make it go all the way to the bottom since we're not really going to see that. It's behind the wall. And let's call this pole, and then duplicate that and call this outer pole, and just slide it over like 20 units, maybe 30 units. Do 30 units, and then slide it up, 30 units. And check the fillet on for this. Radius of 2 looks pretty good. Okay, and we're going to use the atom array to make this the little like grating, fencing, or whatnot that goes in between this pole. So use a cube object, and it's 200 tall, just like our pole. And then in the X, make it 30, and in the Z, make it 0. And so we've got this plane object pretty much now. You could just use a plane object, I guess, but slide it over into place. And basically, if you've never used atom array, it's over here, atom array. It makes like a ball and stick model, kind of, with the vertices of your geometry. So basically, you just crank up the segments in your polygon, or your primitive, your cube primitive, and it adds the little ball and stick model to each intersection. And we're going to need to drop down the radius of each to 1, maybe even smaller. Yeah, that's still too much. Do 0.5 on each. Yeah, that's better. And it'll update based on your subdivision, so you can add as many as you want. Yeah, like right there, that's good. I added 30 segments to the Y. That's better. Okay, and then let's move it. Let's call that grate, and let's move it behind the foul pole so that it's just not over the top of it. Do a quick render. See, now we're looking good. Now we just need something on the bottom here. Or is it sticking out to the side here? It looks like it's sticking out here. Let's move it over just in the X a little bit. Right there. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so let's make the outer pole radius of 1, and duplicate that and call it bottom pole, and change the orientation of it to +X, and shrink it down to 30. And where is it? It's up here. And we slide this down, and this is just going to be our little detail that is at the bottom of our foul pole. And we slide it into place, and it looks good, but if we make this a little longer, it'll look better. Do the height of 32, I guess, would look good. And then slide it over 1 or 2. That's a pretty good joint. And if we move it up 1 more too. Yeah, that's a good little intersection there. And move the grate up 1 too, just so that little piece isn't hanging out there. There we go. Okay, so we've got this foul pole right here. And you can adjust the size if you think it's too big or needs to be higher up or whatnot. There's no real formula for this, but it looks good. Looks good. Now let's add the material I have here, this yellow grungy material. Well, let's group everything together first. Group our pole together. Pole. And take our yellow stripe and apply it to our pole. And change the projection to flat so that it maps across the entire surface. And you can see it's got a little bit of dirt like right there and along the pole. And it's good because it's just a little dirty. And that's what we want. Now let's take this pole, duplicate that, control drag it, and in the X scale, turn to -1 so it just flips it on the other side, and drag that over, whoops, not the object axis tool, the model tool, move it over, and we're going to snap it into place over on the other side. There you go. Now we got both poles in their respective place if we zoom all the way out. Got them where we need to be. Now, let's group the rest of these together. Let's group the wall, the bottom pieces together. Let's group that and call it bottom wall, and group the whole thing together as the wall. And then do this as poles. And let's move them together with the wall just so we can hide the entire thing if we need to be. Alright? Okay, so let's open up a new project, just to have like a little blank slate to work with here, and we're going to model our seat that we're going to use to create our rows of chairs in the stands. We're going to use sweep NURBS predominantly to do this. So let's start with an arc spline, and change the radius to 20, and the plane here to XZ, and then rotate it 45 degrees in the heading so that we can get it kind of lined up with the front here. And we're going to take a rectangle spline and do the width of about 2 and the height of about 10, and turn the rounding on and just leave it on radius of 1, and go to your sweep NURBS here and drop them in there, and if you get it backwards it'll be pretty obvious, so just flip the order of the two. And this is cool. This is going to be the back of our chair. Now you want to do on the caps, do a fillet cap, change the radius to 1 and 1 and 20 in the steps so it'll kind of give a little smoother edge, and that's looking good. Now we'll name this the top for the top of our chair, and the way we're going to do this, we're just going to keep duplicating various pieces to kind of build our chair out of the same kind of parts. So copy that and name it chair or back. This will be the back of the chair. So change this to back, and we can just change the size of our rectangle here to 25, and make it a little thinner actually. Make it 1. Make the other one yeah, that should do. Never mind. Sorry, got sidetracked. Slide it down and move it into place just so it's right at the bottom of the top of our seat. And if you rotate around, we'll see what we got here. Alright, looks good, but we can make this a little bit better with a bulge deformer on our top here. So go to your deformers and do bulge and drop it into our sweep NURBS. Make sure it's below the splines, otherwise it won't work properly. And make the bulge object a lot smaller. Do 50 all around. See if that does it. And change the strength to like 60. And check fillet on. And this looks pretty terrible, so let's rotate these around. Let's try 90 and then negative 90 in the pitch and the bank. And there you go. See, it's like a kind of a tapering off the top to give it a little bit more character. And drop the Y dimension size down to 30. Yeah, there you go. Now you see it's got like a back to it now. Looks a little bit more real in my opinion. So slide the bulge deformer back so this snaps back to where it should be. You just got to position it, however it needs to. A little bit more. Yeah, just like that. So now you see we've got this sort of tapered top to it, and you can, adjust the bulge deformer if you want it to have a slightly different shape. It's up to you. So now we've got that top, and now let's go with the bottom of the seat. So duplicate the back real quick and change this to bottom. And now we're going to flip this around. Just use the rotate tool here and flip it so that it comes on the other side to 100 and... Come on, my mouse is stuck. Hold on. Almost got it. 180 degrees. Alright. And make this one a little thinner than the other ones. Width of like 0.5. and make it a little narrower too. On the arc, make it like 15, so it's a little smaller. And we're going to slide this into place, and well, first we'll rotate it so it's kind of like you know, when a stadium seat is like resting, it's kind of at a, like an angle, like a 25-degree angle or so. So let's leave it at 25 degrees, and let's move it up and over into place so that it's just kind of connected. And we don't have to, you know, get too serious with the construction of this because it's not going to be like the prominent thing in our scene, so we want to just kind of not sweat the details on this one. Let's slide it down so it's about there, slide it back so it's not overlapping, and got a little seat going on here. This is good. Next is going to be just like an armrest kind of divider here. Best way, let's do a cube object, and let's make it, you know, let's just make it 5 all around. I'm not sure what size we should make this just yet. Okay, so just make it smaller so we can see it. Let's make it 10 in the Z, no, 20 in the Z, and maybe 2 in the Y, and 5 in the X might be good. Yeah, 5 in the X is good. And check fill it on, and just leave it at like 1. And let's slide this over into place. Let's scoot it, scoot it, scoot it. More precise. So there's like an armrest there. Let's see. And let's slide it back so that it's back there. So we've got like an armrest going on now. Cool, cool, cool. And let's call this armrest. And let's add like a little divider here. Just duplicate the armrest, call it divider. Change the dimensions to go higher in the Y, like 25 in the Y. Make it thinner in the Z, like a 5 or so. And thinner in the X too, to be like 2. So that this is just like going to go between our seats a little bit. So let's slide this into place so that it's kind of just something to define where one chair starts and the other ends. Let's actually make it taller, make it like 30. Yeah. And maybe a little thinner too. No, actually I like it better at 2. Slide it over just a little bit more so it's kind of connected to the chair. There we go. That works for me. And let's add one here too. So let's just duplicate that and make it a little smaller, like 25. And we'll drop it down. And we'll move it to the front here. It needs to be a little more towards the center here. Some tedious positioning of things. This is the boring part. Slide it back. And we don't really need to worry about this bottom, but I'll just do it for the heck of it. Slide it into place. There we go. So now it's even. Alright, so now we've got this kind of chair armrest thing going on here. Looks good. And we don't need to do it on both sides because it will, well actually we do need to do it on both sides. I didn't have armrests in my original one, so I'm just adding these for the tutorial. So let's make armrest, and we'll slide it over to the other side, so we have armrests over there too. There we go. And voila, we have a stadium seat here. And what we're going to do is add some sort of detail to this, and you can kind of, I think it's a form of cheating because you're not actually altering the geometry of this. You're kind of tricking Cinema 4D into making it look more detailed than it really is. So duplicate your top here and change this to detail. Alright, and do the arc, just make the arc slightly smaller, like 18 or so, and then make the rectangle smaller, like down to 2. Alright, and so you see the shape that we have here, and we're just going to slide it back. Oh, slide the sweet NURBS back just slightly so that it's kind of, most of it's missing but not all of it, and it's kind of intersecting, and you'll see we get this sort of like beveled detail. And if we duplicate that again, and we move this one up, duplicate it one more, move that one down, we've got like 3 of these little slits that make this kind of a cooler looking design than just a regular old chair. Actually delete the top one because we're going to need some space there. So just do like 2 slits there. You can do it however you want, but that's just the trick, is just kind of make it slightly smaller and move it so that it's intersecting, and you get a little convincing kind of design to it. Now let's do the same thing with the bottom. We'll call this bottom detail. Same concept here. Smaller, way smaller. Do like 5. Change the arc to 12, and we'll move it the whole thing back in the Z so that it's just coming out slightly. It's a little too much, actually. Let's increase the arc size. Basically, this is however you want it to look. There's no right or wrong here. Let's do 14. Slide it over in the Z. Slide it back, sorry. Actually, make it smaller, I think, will help. And then move it forward. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to make it a little shorter, too. Just about 2. There we go. That looks better. And let's duplicate that and add another one. Move it up. And then back. Since this is at an angle, it'll look a little different. So there you go. Move it up just a little bit more. Move it back one more. Just slight little detail to kind of bring this scene to life. I'm going to actually just imprecisely position that like that. I'm going to move the other one back just a little bit more too. There we go. Move it down slightly. It's all up to you what you want your chair design to look like. Alright, and the last little detail is a little rectangle or cube primitive that's going to be the little number plate where we add our seat numbers to. And make this like 5 in the X and 3 in the Y, this cube object, and then just like 1 in the Z, and turn fillet on, so it's just got rounded corners, and just drop this back into place. Since it's a curved surface, you might get some funky overlapping, but just lay it on top of your seat here as close as you can get to the edge without it intersecting. And that's the little number plate that tells you, what seat you're sitting in. And if you want to get even more detailed, let's add some little bolts here with a sphere object, radius of 1. Change it to hemisphere as the type. Okay, and that's actually too big. 1 is way too big. What am I thinking? Rotate it 90 degrees forward so that it's facing this way. Shape 90. There we go. And it's got to be way smaller than 1. We'll just call it bolt. And we'll call this number. Alright. The bolt needs to be really small, like 0.2, I think will be better. These are the details, folks. Alright. Let's bring it out. Where did it end up? I guess 0.2 is too small. I can't even see it anymore. 0.5. Did I lose it? Ah, it was just too far in. I thought it was disappearing. Yeah, 0.2 is actually better. Okay, so let's move that up and over and kind of get it in place. Get the camera, positioned so you can see where it's at. There it is. Just real small little detail that will convince people that you definitely know what you're doing. Make another one and slide it over on the other side. Get them kind of evened up. Looking good. Oh yeah. Small little details, folks. Let's call this number plate. Group that together, call it number plate. And then let's group the whole thing together now as chair, or seat. Seat. And we'll copy that and go back to our project that we're working in and paste it. It's going to paste at the origin over here, and you see we've got our seat going on here, so that's good. Let's add some materials to it. Basically take I have a chair, no, I think I just used the green, yeah, the chair's material, yeah, and actually we're going to wait to apply that. Only thing we're going to apply is to our number plate, we're going to apply bolts. I have this like little reflective material in here that I'm going to apply, and this is a really tedious step that if you want to go ahead and get the most convincing looking thing possible, you got to do it. And it's these little numbers here that I've added to our from Photoshop, and they're just, you're going to see what they look like in a second. I added the numbers so that each seat has a different number, because it would look strange if each seat was either A, not numbered, or B, have the same number. So what you'll have to do is, if you want your numbers to be different, you'll have to create a clone for each seat and change this little number. It's a little tedious, it'll take a few minutes, but it's worth it if you're trying to make this as realistic looking as possible. Now, we've got our seat. What we're going to do is use Mograph again to make a clone row, a row of clones of our seats. So drop your seat into your linear cloner here, call it row, and you'll see what it's doing. It's defaults to that Y offset, and that's not what we want. Drop it to 0 in the Y, and then do how wide did we make this? I don't know, 30. Let's see if that's good. Let's get in there. I don't want to move this just yet because we're going to have to move it again in a second. You'll see. We need to go bigger than 30. Go 35. Yeah, 35. Just so the armrests aren't touching. Perfect. Now, we've got our row, and we're going to need to stretch this all the way across. So we need a lot of clones. Do 32 clones if you're doing the same measurements as me. You need to have them go all the way over. Actually, you did too many this time, so do 30. Better to have a few extras hanging off than not enough. Alright, so now we've got our row, and we can use Mograph again and just make a linear cloner of our cloner. Drop that in as the clone. Now you'll see it's going to stack our rows on top of each other, and it's going to, let's call it rows. This is when your render starts getting a little slower, or it starts getting a little bit harder to work in Cinema, depending on your computer setup, because you've got all these clones to work with. So we've got our rows here, and if we rotate over, you can use the left camera view or just kind of rotate over so that we can kind of see where our clones are at. Now we're going to want to move this entire cloner, back a little bit so that they're not right up against the wall, and the bottom clone should be up, higher up, almost at the top of the wall, but not quite. And then the Y, it's 250 is too much to change in the Y, so our rows have to move up like they're like a stadium seating would. So only do like 30, and then in the Z do 30 as well in our position offset in our cloner. And let's see what that does once we get there we go. You see how it's kind of making these like stadium steps, and if you add more of these, it's cloning the rows. So now we'll have 4 rows here, and do a quick little render here. See, we've got 4 rows now, and then you add as many as you need to fill out the scene. Only add as many rows as you need. You don't want to have extra rows in here that are just going to be hogging all your render time. I'm going to change the camera here and get back to the perspective view real quick so that you can see my computer is struggling a little bit in this, and when you have this many clones going on, it's what happens. Now take the row, or the chairs material, and apply it to your rows and do a quick render, and what you'll see is it's good. We've got these green seats, but the dirt is all the same on all of them because we have that UVW projection on there. So change it to flat, so it'll map the entire texture across all of our clones. And now you'll see that each chair is a little bit different in terms of its dirtiness, which is good. Looks a little bit more convincing that way. And what you'll actually need is you could create some different rows. You can do this at the row level if you do like 2 different rows, and then offset this texture like 50 in the X, and you'll see now you'll get even more variation in the seats. See how it's alternating now between rows. Now, what I was alluding to about the numbers earlier is each seat needs a number plate. You see how if I zoom in here and do a render on just the details here, each seat has number 1 on it, okay? And not everybody is going to be sitting in the same seat. That's not how that works. So you need to make 30 seats, or 32, or how I gave you 30 numbers. So you need to make 30 clones, put them in the row, and go in and change the number plate on all of them. For each one, just take a material, grab a number, replace the material, and it'll go in order, and it'll be tedious and boring and whatnot, but you'll be a way better designer for adding something to the details. And it looks like it needs to be offset just slightly in the X dimension, because it's just not perfectly centered when we apply it to our material. Let's see if that did it, just like a 2%, maybe more, 15. Oops, going the wrong way. Do negative 15. As you can see, yep, there you go. Now it's centered. So you might have to just fudge that around a little bit, but that's good. So you can do take your seat and do functions, duplicate, and make 30 copies right here, and do apply, and then there's your copies. It's grouped them together. Take your seats, put them in the row, and then delete those originals, right? And it's duplicated all these, so you can go in here, and I'm only going to do a couple of them just for time's sake. Replace 1. Alright, go to the next one. 2. I know I'm falling asleep right now. And I'll do one more just to show you. Go in here and do 3. Alright, and if we go to the beginning of our rows over here, zoom in, do a render, you see it's 1, 2, 3. So it'll alternate. You'll have 30 clones. It'll look better, trust me, than just kind of leaving it all the same number or not putting numbers on at all. Alright, so next we're going to add our clay and our grass to the field.